So this is our service region. I don't know if you knew, we have approximately 22 counties that we serve, but we'll go outside that area too. So if a teacher was part of KVEC and maybe wasn't part of us, we would still accept them into this program, be happy to do so. But that just kind of gives you a little geographic view of how many counties we serve in our region specifically. And these are the counties and independent systems that have participated in the past. Maybe you're not up here, but maybe you will be real soon. The Entrepreneurial Project was a tie-in for many years with KVEC's programming in the STARS, Students Transforming Appalachia with Real-World Solutions, the Appalachian Renaissance Initiative, and Race to the Top grant. So that's been an important part entrepreneurship has throughout many of the endeavors and initiatives that are here, and that's how we've kind of fit in over time. I'm not going to show the video, but moving right into the integrated curriculum. And so essentially it's collaboration of all curriculum areas as you see fit in how you're approaching this particular project. Common theme, but individual projects. It's aligned to Common Core standards on your level in English Language Arts, Mathematics, and the program review. And so it's a driving question or the challenge, the need to know, the inquiry and innovation, 21st century skills, and I constantly remind my students they're learning and developing skills. I don't know for what, perhaps, because there's going to be job opportunities that we could have never, ever thought up, even currently, that they're going to have the opportunity to be a part of. I would have never dreamed that I would have gone from the typewriter to teaching online with people all over the world. That amazes me as a teacher, that I am teaching people who are miles and miles and miles away or even countries away at times. And who would have thought of that? And that's been just in the last 20 years. Well, actually more or less probably the last 10. So it's amazing where we've come, and I have no idea where we'll go. But students who have the skill set, and number one in that is entrepreneurship. Those skills are going to be vitally important. Student voice and choice, feedback and revision, and then publicly presented products and project, okay? So it's project-based. Students self-select a business, a good or a service. Today you'll hear it called products or services. That's how we've kind of changed and the lingo has changed. I still like it to say goods and services because it kind of separates. A product to me was always either. But the language is now very different in how we teach. Determine the business organization. I encourage a sole proprietorship or a partnership. You can certainly have corporations if you just ensure that everybody is participating. And that's the thing, because I always worry about them being too many in a corporation, and some of those students that you miss in other things might be missed in this opportunity. And this is where I see those students excel. The students that aren't great in math, aren't great in science, aren't great in English, aren't great in one area, all of a sudden in a program like this, they excel. Those are the students you see really rise up to the occasion generally, because it's something they get to pick. They get to choose, they get to showcase something they're very passionate about, and it changes their excitement about what they want to learn and show you they can do. And it's impressive to see that. So I always caution for that one reason, that if you get too many in a partnership or too many in a corporation, you have dominance and maybe it squashes down the least dominant voice. So be careful of that. You all create a business plan. It's a data notebook. So in the middle school, I actually will have a folder and you'll have lots of documents in it that prove to be the business plan. In high school, they literally, and again, it's trying to get you in the mode and get the students in the mode of progressing. So at the high school level, because they might want to go to the Lieutenant Governor's Challenge, it's actually a formal paper with guidelines on the rubric for business plan and formal for the presentation. And it's a much more complicated type of adventure. So you all, I'm getting you started, and over the years, I've changed things like value proposition that goes in the display wasn't there initially. It's become there because that's some of the language used in the high school level, and I want your students to feel very comfortable and confident in moving from one grade to another if they enjoy entrepreneurship. And so that's why I've tried to be alert to that and think about how can we transition them without getting too much complication. And then the students will actually present their project. So I'm teaching business concepts at the same level you are, My students always go too complicated though. I always laugh. They always want to open a restaurant, a bar, a conference center, you name it, and it's always very expensive, so they don't really get to open it, but they propose it. Your students are actually opening what they are selecting, and so my students have learned the same content, so they are the judges for this event at the regional, not county sportsplex competition. And so my students actually come through, and I think they're judged anywhere from 3 to 5 times. So a batch of my students will come through. Your students will do about a 5-minute presentation, and that gives them information, and then they have a rubric that they go through that I'll share with you that they'll look for certain things. So they'll look for things on the display board. They'll look for things at the table with a prototype. They'll look for things in whether they use technology and what they did. And they'll look for all the paperwork in the proper place, you know, detailing what their project is. So we have the prototype, and I've got to tell you a story. One year, my students judged a group, and I don't know if the teacher's in here. We didn't know it was the prototype. We marked that they weren't, and the teacher came back to me and talked to me about it. They had dog food that was tiny like confetti. My students thought it was confetti on the table. And so I think it's important for your students to always tell my students where the prototype is and a little bit about it, because my students missed it. They didn't understand that that was the dog food. It was tiny, tiny, and it just looked like they decorated the table, you know, and they never understood that it was that tiny. And so, you know, it's very important. So now I make sure my students, I said, if you don't see a prototype, you ask. So that was something I changed in the training of my students, is they didn't understand that's what the product was. I mean, they were hearing about it and understanding it, but they didn't know it was actually laying there. So that's something for your students as well to take note. Make sure you point out the prototype when you present to the judges, that they know what your product is, and they see it, touch it, look at it, you know, whatever the case may need to be, smell it if that's part of it, you know, just so that they understand. So there's marketing examples. You students can have the advertisements, you know, on here. When we say marketing strategy, they may have posters around it, you know, however you choose to decorate, but make sure that that certainly is part of it. Some give business cards, you know, it's a whole array of things that they do. Okay, you're welcome to include business community partners. We encourage that because in many cases, you all have had a fair yourself prior to bringing the winners to me, because I can only accommodate the winners for each. Now last year we limited was it 7th grade, because we had so many 7th grade participate, but normally I'll let you bring 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in goods or products, and 1st, 2nd, 3rd in services. And we'll talk about that again today, about how many of what grades we have, so that we can calculate what's the right number, you know, to make sure everybody gets equally and fairly judged, and an opportunity for that. The purpose is to share, mentor, judge, and so, you know, in talking about bringing in business owners to talk to your students, that's a perfect way to get people from the community into your particular school, and I think they enjoy that. Also finding judges for the fair, I think that's a wonderful way to get people in. And it, you know, and maybe somebody from the newspaper do an article about it and what you're doing. I think that those are great ways to kind of illustrate the learning that's taking place in your schools and for the community to better understand. And they like to come in most cases. Okay, student capstone. So the student orally presents the project, business and industry partners, judges along with other supporters. You might think it's like a Shark Tank. So then creating the project, what do business and industry in my area want or need? How can I produce it cost effectively? How will I determine if there's a market for it? How much startup money do I need? Where will I get the loan? How much interest will I have to repay? How much will I need to charge to make a profit? All these things are covered in the curriculum that they talk about throughout. I encourage you to, if you need to, and you know your parents better than I, but to write a letter and help them understand that it's not about the parents giving everything. It's about students understanding that they might have to borrow, and for a minute I'm going to talk about a cake. They might have to borrow the pans. They might have to have some infrastructure. Let the parents charge them a little bit for rent, because if they had any other equipment, they would have to be charged. Help them have as realistic of an experience as possible so they understand, because the biggest thing is the pricing. And unless you understand you have cost, you don't realize the difference between the revenue and profit. All right, and then we get in, so essentially it's 5 chapters in a curriculum. Getting started, deciding what and how to produce, producing the product, marketing and selling, and then closing the business. You don't have to close the business. The students don't have to truly close, but at some point they kind of take inventory of what have I sold, what is my costs, my revenues, and my profits, so that we better understand what they've made. So, social studies, where in the world was this good or service ever sold? Did it have an effect on the economy of the area? In what period was it sold? Was the economy of the area like, what was it like at that time? Are there major modes of transportation in the area to help with production? You know, you can open up doors of opportunity to get some collaboration with others, you know, by just working with them to plan and coordinate what you might need, especially like I see this in math fitting in so well. You know, the practical math going into a certain time frame that's going to help you maybe. And so science, is there a chemical, mechanical, technological, or agricultural reaction with my prototype? Can it be altered to be more efficient? English and language arts, the business description, the rationale, presenting it or writing about it with catchy phrases and jingles and logos and branding and that sort of thing. In the math, there's surveys. You may even be helping them, you know, because there's a market survey graph, there's profit loss calculations, interest on loan calculations, rental agreements. All of this, you know, could help. And then arts, the marketing signs and banners, jingles and music. You could get lots of different people involved if you need to. Okay? Technology, website creation, advertising for social media, brochures describing the project, describing what you're particularly thinking of. Partnerships with businesses, maybe they can assist students in finding a business or figuring out what product they might want because they're exposing them to more. Willingness to mentor, maybe have some mentor groups. Willingness to judge and constructive feedback on, I might recommend this, or I really didn't understand that. Okay, and then Andrew is here for support. I'm here for support. The Booth Entrepreneurship Center makes available, we asked several years ago, what do students want? Awards, plaques, medals, you know, what is it? And they said money. So we provide money, and then Andrew and KVEC actually provide the plaques. So students do walk away with a plaque, but it's the money I think that they get excited about. I think I figured out a way after all these years to make it go smoothly. I think there's going to be an attached sheet. So every time we have somebody, instead of the same people and you have to go to one person, I'm going to hand you a sheet. Say you count your money, your students' money, and then you're signing and you turn the sheet in. Does that sound like that would help it? I think that would help it because we've run into lots of problems with the slowness of that. You know, so we're trying to streamline that. So there's a first, second, and third place award of cash for goods, so on each grade level. So 6th grade's going to have 3 winners for goods and services. 7th grade's going to have 3 winners for goods and services. And 8th grade's going to have 3 winners for goods and services. Okay? Right. Oh, I'm sorry. And then the special awards for creativity. So of all of the students participating, who was most creative, who was most technological, and who was most focused on social entrepreneurship. Okay, and that's what yours won, was the social entrepreneurship. Okay. Teacher, who is teaching what, facilitate the learning within the classroom, create opportunities for your students to research and interact in small groups, create small group learning experiences, determine if grades are being used. Now, will students actually sell, which all of you have illustrated that yes, yours do. If so, in what manner? Now, individually after school, in a community-based manner, festival, or school-sponsored marketplace, we've had any and all combinations. It depends on what works best for your district and your school. Guidelines about how much a parent can assist, and I mentioned that a little bit earlier, just about if they're loaning or giving or providing, you got to work in something where there's actual cost and payment or rentals going back. You know, I think that's vitally important to make it realistic for them. Then the fair. So in your book, if you've never done a fair, it actually walks through kind of a little timeline and a checkpoint of what to do, just so you kind of know everything. And so we'll go over that as we get in the book. Training here, you're here, curriculum and other materials is what we'll provide. treat you just like the students in a quicker way. You know, I will say that I kind of jump things and give you some sheets to kind of progress. That you know, it might take more time with your students. You might have to explain a little more. I kind of assume you are with me and I can move you faster to get through the training. And then each year we change or try to change the curriculum. This year there's not changes. I mean, we didn't see the need. I didn't get any feedback or comments to change anything. But we did, yeah, but we did go from STEM to STEAM. We did work in an art component because more and more we're seeing that, and we did do that because that was recommended. What does it take? The implementation, the commitment, figuring out how to work it in the curriculum. Students do work and then they complete it on time, so the timeline is important to help you. School and district entrepreneurship fair, when is that going to be and how close to the deadline for me can that be? Because we have to be prepared to put every one of your students in that are winners into our database before we ever get here, and we have to assign my students to them. So I usually ask that it be done the Friday before. And what do students get from it? Students gain valuable skills, students take advantage of future opportunities in all these areas and many more. Student Technology Leadership Program, Governor's Academy for Entrepreneurship, Future Problem Solving, Lieutenant Governor's Entrepreneurship Challenge, and any number of other things, because it's about the confidence, it's about the presentation skills, it's about the entrepreneurial skills. And I mean, I would have liked to have had the ability to make money as a young person and know that I could do it and have the confidence to be able to do it. For spare money, for camps, you name it. And so that's an empowering prospect when you can do that for yourself. The value of the project to you, direct impact on students in the region and within local communities, real economic improvements can come from this, tie-ins to curriculum and requirements, good way to build and enhance school and community relations, provides project-based learning on real-world applications and improves your communities. And then these are thank yous to KVEC, our College of Business and Technology, the Booth Endowment and Booth Entrepreneurship Center. So thank you all. What questions?